to another FaceHammer advent video. We're going to talk about command points and lists that need to use them and don't, and how to get the most out of them. I guess it's
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult one to title. There is definitely a genre of lists I would call, and I would brand them like CP utility lists.
Yeah.
Probably, I think there's probably about 8 factions that can make what is essentially exactly the same concept of list, and they've got a few general characteristics. I'll run through those. So they tend to be high drop. They tend to be kind of battalion light unless the battalion fits into the theme. And in some of them, it's completely essential. And that theme is to get command points easily or to get command points that are ones that you want to use frequently for free. So let's say there is a movement-based command point or a boost to spells command point. You know, it doesn't have to be about movement. We're going to talk mostly about combat movement armies, but it doesn't have to be to do with that. If there's something you're going to be using every turn, if you get it for free every turn, then probably on average you're getting 4 free command points out of that battalion, which is an amazing investment, considering that plenty of people buy one for 50 points. Like getting a battalion that has some other bonuses and lowers your drops is a real useful way to get it.
Yeah, we talked about it on our list show when we basically said about building a list around a concept. So these are lists built around a command ability rather than like a unit, I guess, would be the way to. And then how do you get the most out of the command ability? Be able to use it more often. Therefore, you need more command points. How do you get the command points?
They're also. I mean, other characteristics are. I'd say they don't favor they're not like one punch early first turn armies. They're very Russ army. It's like they're kind of counterpunch, techie, patience rewarding armies. I'd say generally speaking, they've got amazing late game. Like that's where a lot of them really, really come into their strengths. It's like turn 2.5 onwards, probably. Now it doesn't mean they don't do anything in the first turns, but basically you have put some investment in at the list stage, and kind of turn 2, you start reaping the benefits when your opponent's like, I can't stop any of this stuff. All of this, it's not like a spell, it's just stuff that happens, and then you're like running around the table in 7 different positions, or you're threatening different options. I guess you could say Khorne kind of can play like this with their Blood Tithe as well. That's worth considering.
Yeah, they are very much a build for the end for a turn, like turns 3 to 4, when you've got enough Blood Tithe to swing. When you get into that state of the game where both armies are kind of pretty decimated and you're playing with bits of units and what you've got left, and then Khorne really come into their own at that point because they've got that way to either add a unit for sustain or do like a double attack to push you over the top of your opponent in terms of models on the table. That's how they operate, really.
I'd say it's particularly strong with armies that can do things in your opponent's turn that are unusual. So counter-charging, interrupting a charge, piling in and attacking, whatever it is. They also tend to be very well-rounded. A lot of them may be shooting light or magic light, but in terms of what they can do on the table, they can cover a lot and do a lot, and including characters that have flexible, widely useful command traits. Of course, there's no point generating all these traits if you've got nothing to do with them. So they're kind of the general concept. I will go through a couple of lists that I wrote. Now, I think Big War is probably one of the best examples in the game for this. Big War it's got 2 books that it can pull traits or abilities from, which is super, super, super helpful. And it's entirely unrestricted. It's why it's the best book in that book is the Big War. I think it's so strong. You can definitely do it with Iron Jaws, particularly Iron Suns, because they come with a counter charge. It's their command trait. So you generating command points at your wazoo. Late mid game, if you've got a load of units of pretty resilient boys and some buffs and a war chanter and stuff like that, they fit into this. But I've got a couple of kind of Big War lists.
So command ability, right? Not the trait. The trait is something else.
Ability. Thank you.
Sorry.
So
we should get told off for using the wrong terms. So
that's fine. Be prepared. There's more to come, guys. So basically, the way that I've gone this list is as it's surrounding kind of command point generation and stuff like that. Unsurprisingly, characters are really important. There's not units that can generate them, I don't think, in the game period. So it's going to come from a battalion or a character or some other thing in your book that you attach to a character. So the way that I've gone about this is I've looked at the movement in the Orruk side of the Orruk Warclan book, the Ironjaws side, and as a matter of course, almost, you've got some amazing options that you can pop in a Megaboss, but the command trait Brutish Cunning that just lets you use Rampaging Destroyers, which is a really flexible command ability for free. Like, you're never going to want to not use that, pretty much. You're either going to get a move, you're going to get a pile in an attack. Like, it's brilliant. It's a way to get around sneaky phases or indestructible armies or do stuff out of sequence, and combined with some other stuff in the book, it's particularly powerful. So we start off with the Megaboss, who's a utility beast, and he's got Brutish Cunning, which lets you use that command trait for free. So straight away, every turn, you've got one of those for free. Jumping to the bottom.
Ability, you mean?
Command ability.
Sorry, I'm going to keep correcting you.
It's all right. Okay, for
so
now,
his
guys.
Command trait lets him use his command ability for free, is what you're saying.
All right, he's doing some command stuff.
Yeah.
Jumping to the bottom, we've got Iron Fist, and that lets you kind of elect a boss of any unit within that formation, which is all of the Orruk units. So Ardboys, Gore Grunters, Brutes, and he becomes a boss, and he can use the trait for free as well. So you've got 2 free command points each turn, basically, at this point. So let's say the game goes for 4 turns. On average, you've got 8 free CPs, which is already sounding pretty good, especially when you've got a lot to do with them. Now, following swiftly onto that, we've got a Weird Knob Shaman. He's got Great Green Visions, and that allows him on a 4+ to generate a CP at the beginning of each of your hero phases. Solid. And then you've got a Fungoid Cave Shaman, who has exactly the same ability. He's an ally. And he's also kind of a little useful character as well. So within that list, you've got a massive amount of utility and command point generation on 4+s. To make sure you get what you need, I've also paid for command point. So basically that's kind of the concept. It is a counterpunch flexible army. You can get that one down to like medium low drops as a result of the formation. I wouldn't say it's low, but it's nice to have the option. And essentially the list, once you've combined the big war abilities, the ability to buff your spell, the ability to pick up and move units that are then using their own command traits, abilities. Oh god, it's got a massive amount of flexibility. So that's the broad concept, and I think you've written quite a lot of lists that end up like this, but you wrote them in the Ironjaws side of the book, Russ.
Yeah, so I think in this list as well, you've got only 1 artifact from what I can see, but you could have 2, and I think there's an artifact you can give the other shaman, like, do you know the, what's it called? Not the Weird Knob, but the Ironjaws shaman. Yeah, whatever he's called, but he has no, that's Bone Splitters. But anyway, he could have an artifact that gives you a command point on a 4+ as well.
Yeah.
So you could change some of the character setup, but the Fungoid is a great ally for any of the Ironjaws, or in the Big War, he's just a great ally because he just gives that ability innately for a 4+ for an ability. So for a point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can, if you wanted to not start with a command point, you could do some fudging around and squeezing of points. I've got cogs in there because it's nice in a movement army, but without the 130 points spent on a command point and cogs, you could fudge around the characters. You could drop in a one of the 2 cast Bone Splitter wizards. He generates on a 4+ as well. So there's a lot of ways.
The Weird Knob is the Ironjaws one. Sorry, I was trying to think. I thought that was the Savage or Orruk one, which is something else.
They've all got the same names. He comes with it anyway, and he can actually pick a trait that helps him generate them. I think you can just get them flat. There's a way to get D3 at the start of the game and some stuff like that. So
I'm pretty sure there's a command point generation in both the Savage Orruk and the Ironjaws, and you could double up if you were doing Big War. That's what I was trying to say. But yeah. The real power of the Big War is, rather than putting your stuff into bonuses to cast spells on your support wizards, you can just get it for free by spending Big War points as well. So that's a really, really nice attribute. You've got a Wardock in there on a 3+, he gets +1 to cast 2. And then what you could end up doing is teleporting 30 Savage Orruks across the table, whatever, Gore Grunters, Brutes, anything like that, even the Megaboss. And then the Megaboss can move himself, depending on which champion you pick for the Iron Fist champion. You could teleport something and then he can use his ability. It's a really, really flexible army. And about turn 3 or 4, when you've probably, you might be sat on 6 command points,
at that point, you can threaten to pretty much wipe a table in your turn with this army. So powerful, so flexible. So that's the idea behind it. The next list that I've got, I basically went to town on the idea of potential CPs. So this is not the most you could generate, but I think it's kind of interesting how we don't end up with an awful list as a result of this. So I think within this list, you'd have to break down the 20 Orruk boys to 210s for battle line requirements. But it's essentially the same list, but we've just gone crazy on the shamans, and we've squeezed things down a lot. So in the big war, we've not got the general in the same way that we would do. We've got 3 fungoid shamans, we've got a Wergog prophet, we've got a weird knob shaman, and we are generating 5 CPs a turn on a 4+. So it's just a massive amount of flexibility there. You can drop in or out a Megaboss on foot. Really good option, quite cheap. And then, of course, you can take the trait in the same way. But I just wanted to demonstrate you're going to get a load of spells. You're going to get a load of dispels. Both of the laws that we're the 3 laws that we're pulling from actually are really flexible. And there's so much in there, you could drop out any of those for some of the utility pieces. So you could put in the Endless spell that allows you access to all the Gloomspite Git spells. You could, if you dropped one of those, you wouldn't need so many units for allies requirements. Then you could put in some different stuff. I thought Fanatics would be an interesting choice with 1 unit of shooters in here, because it's kind of an interruption trickery army. Really flexible. But that one essentially is going to generate, by your 3rd or 4th turn, you could be on 12 CPs with that, which is just an incredible place to be, which is enough to...
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the things you need to be careful of, I know this is probably why you've got the units of like 4 or 5 Orruk boys, is that allies is 1 in 4 units and 25%, I believe. So I think that's okay. But just if you were going to play around with the list and start having less units, you need to be a little bit careful.
Yep.
If you've got like 3 allies or 4 allied units, you need to make sure you've got enough normal ones to allow you to do that.
4.
So, because it's actually one of the restrictions that a lot of people just don't even realise is a thing. Because it never really comes up.
Unless you're writing something this stupid.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd point it out in case you're sat there going, I could put those our boys into 3 units of 10, and then you suddenly won't have enough units. So
yeah. It's kind of a toss up in this one, because it's very nice to be able to teleport a very big unit, but then you're putting all your points in one place and stuff like that. You do end up with a lot of screens, and 5 Orruk boys can do quite a lot as well, which is it's kind of a real bonus of the list. But
you'd have to split the 20 into 2 10s for battle line, otherwise you wouldn't.
Yes, you would do.
Yeah.
So yeah, super flexible, and that's kind of just pushing the concept to the extreme. The other armies that handle this well, if we just run through them, they don't all do it with movement shenanigans in the same way that the Ironjaw's half of the Orruk Warclans book does. OBR, is it Shield Corps, Russ?
Yeah, well, they've got different formations which allow you to activate the abilities that you use RDP for free, but they also, a battalion will generate you an RDP per turn. So in terms of efficiency of discipline, then OBR with formations have a very good way of doing it. Obviously, OBR don't behave like a normal army. Then you've got other armies like Saves to Darkness, Despoilers taking the plus D3 Diabolic Mantle to give you a boost. I think Flesh Eater Courts are very reliant on command points for Feeding Frenzy, and if you take Feast Day, you get that for free. Which is a great way to unlock the restriction of having to put a formation in, because I think if you don't, you have to have the command points. And before, the reason this is kind of relevant, I think, is before, when you could buy as many as you wanted, and then also you had the Amethyst Brooch, which every time you use one on a 5-up, you got one back. You could kind of game the system by starting off with 3, and then just basically going, well, I'm every 3 command points I spend, I'm getting another one. So you were never really getting command point starved, but now it's a lot harder. So there's a niche set of armies that can still do it. Legion of Grief have an artifact. I think it's a command trait in Legion of Grief, which allows them to have the same effect as the brooch. So every time they spend a command point on a 5-up, they get one back, which I think is the only faction in the game that still has access to something like that.
Stormcast used to.
I think
believe.
they've got the helm on the. If you place Tempest Lords, I think there's a helmet that gives you a command point.
I have no idea.
Because
Les was like, excuse me.
I was like, no idea.
Because I wrote a list around a Dracoline unit because their ability isn't restricted. It isn't restricted till once per turn. So you could basically take the Amethyst Brooch back in the day and the helm and generate so many command points. You could stack the ability on the cats to make them very, 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 very good.
It's the most high damage I've ever seen in the game, I think.
It's extremely techy and a little bit weird, but it did work. The reason I never bothered is because I just figured it wouldn't be around for long. So it was. I just figured it would get caught by an FAQ or if line sorcery went away. It's like I just thought, well, there's no point investing in that weird niche army. But I think the Tempest Lords still have that artifact. I think it is that gives them command points.
I'll have a look. I've not really delved into the Tempest Lord thing, but you're not unless you're generating it externally like you are with the fungoids now. It's not as easy to have like that big wealth of command points.
No, some armies can get multiple ways to start with, like D3, or you get an extra one, or if you're like ways to steal it off your opponent is less reliable. But obviously, there's a bigger swing involved there, and it also really screws with people's heads. But as a general concept, if you've got good command traits and you want to be flexible and you want to have late game, these lists really work. You don't have to have a formation in there. It's just a few of the ones we've spoken out do. And if you're in Big War, you don't have access to the Ironjaw's command traits, so you want to get it for free with using the command trait or with using the battalion.
That was why when I did the Sinesh army, it was all revolving around these abilities that stop you using your command abilities.
Yeah.
So it can shut down probably one of the most powerful in the game, which is the Daughters of Cain, Slaughter Queen, fight in your hero phase. If you shut that off, you can because that gets around the locus.
Yep.
So by shutting that off, they've got no way to get around the locus because they're not attacking you out of sequence. So I think it's, and like there are other ways like Kurdos Valentine you mentioned can steal command points off your opponent. So it's that sort of disruption is very powerful, especially if there's an army that's very reliant on it, because you just losing one command point could be a big deal.
Yeah, I think the armies with the potential to hit hard really benefit from this a lot, because there's normally that middle, slightly baggy, what are you going to do? What's your potential moment of the games, and being able to countercharge something here, like wipe something out and be free to charge whatever else there, teleport this over to the other side of the board, and then have it move, and then have it charge. All that type of stuff really, really stacks up. So if you like techie armies, if you like armies that you can make your own, because they are infinitely flexible, you're just taking a very broad theme and pushing on it, and you like armies that are fun to play, I think these are absolutely brilliant. These are some of my favourite armies in the game to write and to play with and to play against. And if you like kind of that slow grind until you realise there'll be a look on your opponent's face when turn 1 they weren't so bothered about how your army worked. Turn 3 they're going to realise just how incredibly good it is. That's also kind of there's like a reveal moment where you're like, I'm doing these 17 things this turn and I think I've got the game.
Yeah, so I mean basically command point armies, they're a thing. And if you've got an ability that is particularly powerful through command points, is to make sure you have enough. So,
yeah,
as simple as that, really.
Yeah, particularly the flexible ones, things that can do multiple things, things that allow you to move or attack or shoot, etc.
That's why I really like the Iron Suns.
Yeah.
It's really interesting listening to you guys talk about it, because I've never really played armies that have been reliant on command points other than early doors Idenef with Volturnus. And then it didn't matter because I didn't spend any command points because I was so flexible with movement until turn 3, and then I spent all my command points on turn 3, and then I didn't care about him again for the rest of the game.
But I think the Fire Slayers cared about it, didn't they? Because the attack in the...
They did, but they didn't at the same time.
Because
because I start with two. I start with two, and then like by turn two, I've usually not spent any. So it's turn three. I've got 3 command points, and then if I've got 3 command points like in the bag, I usually win. So well, I mean, that's it's a little bit less than that. It's essentially you start with 2 command points. You're not fighting on the first turn unless you're spending a command point to make sure that the run that you've got for the run when you've got the rune for run and charge off. You're spending the command points for that to turn it to 6 to get you into the center of the table ready to score the objectives, and then at that point you're sat on 2 command points, and all you need is to be able to strike first, because they have to come and like dig you off the objectives, particularly in the missions that I was playing with Fire Slayers. So most of the time your enemies coming to you, they come to you, you spend a command point, fight and kill them, or you or in sort of like games when I played Slanesh, I would, well, I'd essentially charge them on my turn to spend a command point to counter their locust because of the always strikes first. Like the activation wars, it was a case of because we both had the always strike first. Essentially, we all started the strike at the start of the hero phase. I'd spend my CP to then activate in. I'd choose the activation, so then I'd go first and do it that way. But again, it was only the we're talking about sort of like a time when like, I've not played Fire Slayers in this iteration of the handbook. I've not played Fire Slayers since the list changed to 3 units of 20 Hearthguard Berserkers. It's all by sort of like when we were at the ETC, and I was playing very specific like missions where I essentially like marched into the center of the table and went, come and get me off these objectives. If you can't, I win the game. So yeah, but no, I do think that Fire Slayers are, if you had somebody that was stealing your command points, it would be difficult. But also, I think inherently the army doesn't really care because most things can't get through the Hearthguard Berserkers if they've got the heroes there.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I know there's Stormcast don't have a lot of command abilities, but there was a list with Gavriel.
Oh yeah, they
short
get the
charge with the stack, and then
there's also the one that lets you shoot in the hero phase.
Yeah, the Anvils of Heldenhammer. Yeah. So one of the things that I thought was very good in the Khorne book was the crown, which allowed you to use the command ability for free. So that is making you efficient because it's giving you basically the ability once per battle round or turn. I can't remember which word it is. It's probably battle round, I think. To do the kind of Reapers of Vengeance pile-in or whatever you want to do with it. So it's
which frees up that CP for a charge reroll or a run if you need it and stuff like that.
Or it's the 6-inch because I think the Reapers of Vengeance is attacked twice. So then the ability on the the Unfettered Fury is the 6-inch pile-in. So you would basically pop it with a crown, gives you the 6-inch pile-in, and then with Reapers you can cascade it in. Twice. The formation allows you to cascade down and go twice with the last one. And Scarbrand never has to go twice because whatever he hits once dies.
Such a flexible ability. Yeah, it's also worth remembering that if you can reroll ones on everything, your unit is going to do ridiculously. If you've got something that hits hard and does things on 2s and 3s or 2s and 2s or whatever, being able to reroll that charge, reroll those ones, reroll ones on saves. If you're like just pooping out command points for lols, you can make something twice as good by just removing probability from the equation almost entirely.
I think it's probably a worth to give a little nod to things like A for Gold and A for Quartz, which allows you to use triumphs. And basically, if you've got KO, I think one of the Skyports gives you double A for Gold. And then there's other ways you can boost it. I think it might be Barak Urbaz. I think they're the traders. They get the extra gold, and I know that the Lumineth have got a similar thing with A for Quartz.
Yeah, with the A for Quartz, where you can boost your boost your armor, boost a command, boost a cast roll, and stuff like that. And then I think like people aren't taking this Sire Great Nation, which allows you to have double Aether Quartz instead of having just the once per game ability. You can do it over 2 turns, which is handy. I mean, there is a negative, is that you lose some pip of bravery, but it's you can counteract that quite easily.
Flexibility and resources of it's always going to be a thing, especially in good players' hands. Gives you options.
Yeah. So I think that'll pretty much wrap this episode up. But if you've got any ideas for command point lists that you want to put in the comments,
Yeah, put them below.
Over in the Discord, or you got any questions?
I'm sure we've missed some.
I'm sure we've probably said stuff that was not 100% true. So as
Correct.
we've been rambling, so yeah, feel free to correct us. And
I love a good correction, me. Yeah.
And
If someone wants to write me the list that makes the most CPs a turn as well, I kind of want to see that just out of curiosity.
Especially if it's got 9 cockatrices, but probably not. Okay, we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.